Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of the Lunatic Sports Podcast. If you've made it this far, kudos to you, because I don't know if I could. This episode, we're going to really focus in on everything Cardinals, since our last episode was really focused on St. Louis City and all the wonderful things they're doing. We're going to focus on Cardinals and some of the bright and maybe not so bright spots that we've had here towards the end of the season. With all of that said, I'm going to hand it over to my co-host here, John Love. And as always, I'm your host, Tyler Edwards, and here we go.
Good evening, Tyler. I wanted to say on one of these, and I didn't want to say it on Wednesday because Wednesday was so much fun. But it's really unfortunate that you and I both have a face for radio, but not the voice for radio.
You know, having all of the allergies and the wonderful things I've got going on, I can guarantee it's that much worse right now.
It
I might have
really,
to start changing my voice when we record just so I sound better.
that we should probably do that. I bet that's what the pros do. Um,
Auto tune.
uh,
I think that's what they're using.
yes, we've made a mistake for sure, and you should probably hire a better producer to fix that for you. But instead, you're stuck with me.
Yeah, I have a pretty low budget. So
Fair.
exhibit A.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh man. Well, hey, you want to just jump straight into the recap then, and we can get to it.
Yeah, we can hop right up into our recap and kind of get rolling. This last week started out kind of rough. We went 0-3, got swept by the Phillies. I think everyone who was watching the Cardinals, keeping track of the Cardinals, saw that, didn't feel great about it. And we weren't competitive in those games. And I think that was the hardest part for me.
Yeah.
But then we come back against the Padres, who have not been a bad club. They're still in the wild card contention, or at least they had been. We went 2-1 of that against them. Not just did we go 2-1, we won two of those games, close, hard-fought games where we actually had to win it via walk-off. Tommy Ballgame, or Tommy Edman, as some people may know, decided that he wanted to do his best Albert Pujols impersonation and walk off back-to-back days.
That's right, Tommy Gamer, saving our season right there. You know, so we won those games on back-to-back days, and I honest to God could not remember if we'd won games on back-to-back days at all this year. I mean, played 130 games. I figured it had happened. So I just did a quick check on our scores, and it turns out we did it just like 2 weeks ago. It's just we haven't really won since, and I completely forgot that happened against the Athletics and the Royals. So that
Yeah,
brings
but
us
we're talking about the
to
Athletics and Royals and the bottom feeders of the AL, so it's not exactly something to write home about.
you know what? We're going to take every win we can get this year, and we're just going to be thankful that there's not no relegation in MLB, which I have advocated for in the past to get rid of the Pirates. But since we're below the Pirates this year, we're no relegation. We're good with this. But now we're sitting at a very good record. We're at 58-76. We only need to win 12 of our last 28 to hit 70 wins, which I believe us making a bet with no stakes about. We might need to add stakes, especially once they hit the 70th win, which I believe was my take, not yours. But unfortunately, we are 3 games behind Pittsburgh, as I alluded to a moment ago. That sucks. I really do not like
It
it.
hurts. It hurts to see that. And knowing the franchise that Pittsburgh has been, the Pirates have not been good outside of a couple of years where McCutchen was trying to win MVPs every year. They
Yeah,
haven't been good. So to see where we're at and see us below them in the standings, and not just them, but other clubs like the Reds and people who really haven't been good for a long time, it's just not a great season for us. And so for us, we really need to figure out, as Cardinals fans, the front office, the team, what can we do to win over the fans and convince Cardinal Nation that this is a fluke and we're going to be back next year.
right. Yeah, I think the front office is trying to do that. I mean, if you pay attention to anything on social media, for people who go to the games, the very few of them that the stadium is basically empty, at least by our standards now. It's hard to generate that kind of support when, some of the roster construction issues that we've talked about have been apparent for a long time. And it just feels like it's finally hurting us when maybe we were getting lucky for a few years. Um, Plus, being sellers at the deadline, like nobody wants to be a fan of a team that's a seller at the deadline, right? And even though we didn't really sell like anything that we weren't going to lose at the end of the season anyway, still was not pleasant. Although I do really commend them for what they got back because I do think that they basically turned a lot of nothing into something with the trades that they.
I agree. I think we got something, and I think that's all you can ask for. Looking ahead, do we think they're actually going to hit 70? We've talked about this last week, I think, or the 2 weeks ago, and I'm still not sold that they actually hit 70 the way they've been playing. But after those last two wins against the Padres, maybe they do. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to rely a lot on these young guys and what they actually bring to the table for us. So with that, Luken Baker's been called up, playing some DH for us. You've got Nolan Gorman in and out right now with his back issues, which we'll get into a little bit later. I think there's some concern there. Somebody that young having that many back issues really ties him into a DH spot. And if they don't see Contreras as the actual everyday catcher, that's got to be Contreras' position as DH. And Gorman's not going to be able to bend down over and over and over again with a bad lower back and keep playing second base at the level he is. So I have some concerns there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to go too much into that. I do think that they have been projecting Gorman to mostly be DH. With with the prospects we have coming up and you add in Edman and Donovan, and I do think that that's probably going to be his primary position, except for when they want to spell people, and depending on how they have to shift Donovan to cover other positions. Um, but still, yeah, I don't really like him as a long-term second baseman because I do think that that's probably a lot of where his injury is coming from.
With Luken Baker, that home run he hit, that was pretty. It was
It
nice to
was,
see.
it was. He has unfortunately only had one other hit in the last 5 games, but he did get his first major league dinger, which is always a win. Um, Struck out a few times, so it looks like, and this is his last 5 games that I pulled. So he's 2 for 10 in his last 5 games. The one home run, one single, 4 strikeouts, and no walks. Um, so I mean, he's a rookie, right? Like he's not. It's to be expected. He's got to adapt to big league pitching. I'm okay with this right now.
I think, give him some time. We'll see what he looks like.
Hmm.
Another young guy that I'm really excited about, and this is the one thing that I was my highlight thing to watch for after our last episode when we talked about the Cardinals, was Drew Rom and
Hmm.
how he was going to bounce back after the shellacking that he took in that
My
first
God.
start for himself. And I talked about it that there were some things in that first inning that I think got away from him in that first start.
Hmm.
A couple of
Sure.
infield hits, got his pitch count up, and he just wasn't ready. And going from the minor leagues to the major leagues, if you don't have that top level stuff day in and day out, you have a chance. You got to learn how to really pitch to get the big league hitters out. And he wasn't ready for that. I think it took a toll on him in that first inning. Coming back, pitched 5.5 and a third, only gave up 2 runs, 1 walk. He had 6 strikeouts. So that some of that deception was there, and that
Right.
that swing and
I
miss
was going
stuff
to
that we were
say,
looking for. Sadly, no run support for him. We did lose 3-0. That was part of the Phillies beat down that they gave us for those 3 games.
yeah, yeah, he did bounce back, and you talk about guys that make the jump from AAA to the majors, that's almost always what determines if you're staying or if you're going back down. Is if you can bounce back and if you can adapt, if you can make these day in and day out adjustments that you need to be successful. So I was really, really happy to see that. He did just get absolutely, as you said, shellacked in that game right before. His ERA at the major league level is still like 8 something because he did not
So right up there
do
with
very
Wayno
good.
this year.
Yeah, yeah, right up there is Wayno, but Wayno gets a lot more slack, having done it for 15 years and won us the World Series and whatnot. But yeah, it's exciting stuff for Drew Rom. I'm really excited. I think he's pitching. We're recording on Thursday night. Going to release on Saturday morning. I think he's pitching Friday night. So by the time you listen to this, we will hopefully have another start under his belt to see kind of how he's doing.
Another young guy, and again, we're focused a lot on these young guys right here because this is the exciting things we have going on in Cardinals Nation. See what we've got to go. Palacios started out red hot. We talked about it. I mean, just getting after it those first few games, cooled off, went 0 for 9 for 3 games over a 3 game stretch. But that last game that we played, he did go 2 for 3, and maybe, is making some adjustments. His average is still right at or just over, I think, 300 for the season for his season up here in the big leagues, which is, all of 2 weeks. So take that with a grain of salt. And for those of you just listening, I was doing the air quotes when I said for his season, as we all know that's pretty small sample size. So at least he's showing it, and potentially defensively could be an option for us as a utility guy, or what happens in spring training, who knows? But I think he's trying to earn himself an invite to compete for a spot in spring training.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of a great call out that you just had there, that the sample size for all of these guys right now is still really small. And even at the end of the season, like we're going to kind of have an idea of it, but it's really just about getting them a feel for major league pitching. If this was the beginning of the season and we had their stats at the end of April going into May, we wouldn't really be taking anything out of it. It's too small of a sample size, and it's going to be the same thing that in the season for these guys. It's really just about getting them game time. Our last young guy that we wanted to talk about today though was Mason Wynn. Um, he's not really been hitting well since he's been up. Started off, I think he had both of his hits, I think, might have been in his like that first game he was up. But in his last 5 games, he's 2 for 15 with 4 strikeouts, one double, at least one double, but 0 walks as well. So, with both him and Lucan Baker and probably Palacios too, it's a lot of pressure to step up to this level, and they have to kind of adjust to just like being like, okay, I can be a major league player, and I just need to take a breath, step back, and see the ball the way I need.
So something that I wanted to highlight here, with both Mason Wynn and Lucan Baker is, Lucan Baker, you look at, he's swinging for the fence type. That's his style. But I feel like we see more and more with the Cardinals young hitters coming up that we don't draw walks like we used to. We used to have young guys who could come up, and Matt Carpenter's an extreme example of this, don't get me wrong. I remember watching Matt Carpenter when he played back in Springfield, so my family used to go down. We used to go to the Springfield Cardinals games growing up in Rolla, Missouri. And over the summer, I'd go home from college and we'd drive down, and I actually got to meet Matt Carpenter before a game because David Freese was supposed to be on a rehab start. With his injury prone self, he actually got injured again. So Matt Carpenter had to do a meet and greet with all the fans out in the concourse and then run and warm up and get ready to play right away because Freese couldn't play. So then I got to watch him just tear him up as well. He was a guy who, did a great job of knowing the strike zone and really owning that strike zone. And I felt like we had a good group of young guys that have come through that have really understood their strike zone coming in. And I'm not saying that these guys don't, and it's a small sample size. So it's hard to say right now, but it makes me concerned as, both of them have roughly as many strikeouts as they do, I mean, what, 4 strikeouts? They both got 4 strikeouts in their up here so far in their last few games, neither one with a walk. And somebody like Mason Wynn, you just got to get him on base and let his speed play. His speed's going to play no matter what.
Right.
And something that I haven't seen from him and something that I'm intrigued to see if they'll try, just get the guy on base, try a bunt for a hit, do a drag bunt, do something. And if they pull the infield in, the classic swinging bunt could, might be work too. I remember loved watching Fernando Vina back in the day. That guy used to do the little drag bunt and be already running down the first baseline to try to get on base and jumpstart things. And I would love to see him just do something to get on the bases because I think if you could build his confidence offensively in another way,
Mhm.
potentially might help him snap out of this little bit of slump because he was hitting the ball well in AAA.
Right, right. I've got two thoughts on that. First off, I love your call out there about the confidence, right? With hitting at that level, it is all about confidence, all about how you're feeling, how your swing feels, and any minute change in your stance or in how you're looking at the pitcher while he's giving it, um, those can really affect how well you're hitting. And then you get in a funk, and it's really hard to break out of that. Confidence, I think, is really key there. The other thing is, I do agree with you a little bit for our guys with taking walks. Um, I will say, if I think about all of the guys who have broken out in the last 2 or 3 years, only one of them, I would say, is good at drawing walks. Some of them are okay, and some of them have gotten better over the last couple of years too, since they first came up. But that's obviously Brendan Donovan, right? Donovan
Hmm.
draws walks better than anyone I think I've seen play for us in like a decade. That's like,
Since Prime Marp.
yeah, prime mark. Yeah, I'd agree. Um, good old Matt Carpenter reference again. Um, but yeah, I do agree with you on that. Um, but we'll see. We'll see kind of what happens. It's going to be, a quick September. It's going to feel like forever because it's not fun, but it really will go quick for these guys. And I'm excited to kind of see at the end of the season what they end up having done this month.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be fun. And really, for some of these guys like Palacios, and really Palacios and Lucan Baker, this
Mhm.
is their chance to really earn a good invite and a chance to earn a roster spot in spring training. We know Mason Wynn's going to be at spring training and be there competing for a spot. He was there this year, not necessarily competing for a spot, but he was there. And so I think that's exciting. With the series we just won, there was a couple of fun highlights. I mentioned the Edmund walk-offs. I'm excited to see him playing again and looking healthy again. I know he'd
Mhm.
gotten banged up a little bit in there. I still don't know where he projects for us long term. You've got somebody who can play Gold Glove, second base, and shortstop caliber
Mhm.
defense, but can also play solid defense and center field. He's somebody that I think is a spark plug for our team and needs to play. So we'll see where he ends up long term or what we end up doing with him. But there was a couple other highlights, I think, for the series against the Phillies, or not against the Phillies. This
The other
series,
keywords, Padres.
yeah, no, it's good.
Like
But
the
the series
Phillies, the
against the
Padres, and the
Padres,
Pirates. Just get
yeah,
them all
it's
confused.
it's we get all the P's right there in a row. But the series against the Padres, a couple other nice little highlights there for us.
Yeah, so I mean, Contreras had a two-homer night, which what was cool about that was it was actually the first time his parents got to watch him play as a Cardinal. I just thought that was really awesome. And then just a good old-fashioned Jordy bomb. Jordan Walker had a no-doubter. It was, God, he just crushed it. It was a 430 feet. Uh, so I mean, we do have bats that can come alive and can hit. And I mean, it is kind of frustrating though when you look back at our season stats because the team has ranked very well offensively overall, but it seems to have been very streaky, and it's been a lot of a game where we'll go out and we'll put up 8, 9 runs, and then we'll have a few games where we don't really do anything. And runs have been elusive, but we are getting on base well. I did pull some stats. These are from the 25th, so then they could have changed a little bit for this. But on 825, we were the only team to have 10 players who had hit 10 home runs, which, is 100 runs right there. We were fifth in OPS in the majors, which was 0.763. We had the eighth lowest strikeout rate, which surprised me, 21.4%. And then we had the eighth highest walk rate, which was 9%, which is a pretty good walk rate on its own. Um,
So
and yet, despite that, we can't win games.
you, the thing is if you look at our offensive numbers
Hmm.
in a lot of categories and a lot of them, we're better than we were last year when we won the
Right,
division.
right.
The biggest difference here is pitching. and we
Hmm.
did not have it this year. And we've talked about it, everyone's talked about it. We were not ready with the pitching.
Hmm.
We don't have quite as many guys who are hitting as many home runs
Right.
with where we're at. Can you name every Cardinal this season right now that has 20 or more home runs?
I think Arenado does. And after him, I don't know if Goldie has 20. But
Goldie's there.
Goldie's there. Okay. Okay. That is going to be where I stop. There's a couple of guys who I think might be close, but Gorman has missed a good amount of time. Contreras has missed some time. It was starting slow this year. So I'd probably stop with them, but those are the two guys who I think would be next, is one of those two.
There's three. The third one's Gorman.
Oh, it is Corbin. Yeah, how many does he have?
I can pull it up for you real fast.
That's fine. I'll look at
But
it later.
he was Nolan Gorman is the one. He is right there. He is at 24 on the season.
That's solid. That's solid.
Uh, and again, they've talked about it. The analysts talk about it. Gorman's got 40 home run a season power if he stays
Oh,
healthy and in the DH role.
absolutely. Hmm.
So he's somebody who the power plays.
Hmm. Power,
But you would
bucket flow.
expected more from Contreras this year, right? But with some of
Yeah.
the different controversies and things that popped up, some of his playing time was cut. He's missed his opportunity. Again, having his parents there in the 2 homer night, John Mozeliak better be finding some season tickets and be willing to pay for some plane rides because we need his parents there at every big game if that's how he's going to play when they're in the stands.
Probably just be cheaper to buy him a house here. And let's be clear, there's seats available right now. So I'm sure he's gonna Um, I think we'd be remiss if we did not at least bring up, you know, kind of our Wayno watch is what I'm calling it, or the race for 200.
Yeah.
So a week ago when we talked about him, he is 2 wins away, and shocker, he is still 2 wins away from hitting 200. But at least this time it's not on him. Uh, he did pitch against the Padres. Unfortunately, it was the only game we lost against the Padres, and it's really not his fault. He went 6 innings pitched. He did give up 8 hits, but he's always given up hits, but he's been able to control it and get out of jams. Only one earned run, one strikeout, 3 walks. Um, that is still a lot of people on base for 6 innings. So I hope to see him start cutting that down, maybe start getting some confidence and start locating better. Um, but yeah, it was a good start for him. Uh, Another thing that I had tracked for him, or that I had found, really, it wasn't something I looked at myself, but I saw it quoted. Um, so he has made 18 starts this year. Okay, and in those 18 starts, the Cardinals have scored 0 runs while he was pitching, and then in another 3 of those, they have scored 1 run. So
So we have 7 starts where he's got zero, three
yes,
starts with one. So 10 of 18 starts, he's gotten
yes,
1 run or less.
yes, yes, and like okay, yeah, his pitching has been bad this year, but also like the game state matters, right? Pitching when you have a lead is very different than when you're trying to contain a lead or trying to prevent them from getting ahead. Um, and so I think if we just could have, maybe come alive a little bit more in some of his starts, the game may have gone different for him. But yeah, he has got 6 games left. I do think he can get 2 wins in these 6 games. Uh, Pitching against Pittsburgh next week, or maybe this weekend, then Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and then ending with Cincinnati. Um, so I think if he gets a win this weekend against Pittsburgh, right, and then he's just got to win one of the next 5 starts, and I think that's doable. I think it's possible. I don't know if I think it's likely.
If if Wayno can give us 6 innings and 2 earned runs in 4 of those 7, I think he's got a chance.
Yeah,
We'll see what happens, but that's my opinion.
yeah,
And again, I love Wayno. You know I love Wayno. Wayno was the first legitimate Cardinals jersey I ever bought that had a player's name on the back.
Sure. Really, not
And
like
so,
like you bought as an adult, you mean? Not
yeah,
like as a kid. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah, I was
said
gonna
that
say
I
surely you
bought.
had right. You did say that. I was gonna say
uh,
you were here in '98. There's no way you didn't have a McGuire jersey, but or a shirt or something.
yes. So, and actually, you know, he'll be the next jersey I buy as well, and maybe the one after that. Who knows? So, I love Wayno. I want to see him do it. I just the way that we've collapsed when he started is hurt. Um, you know, big push we've had recently, kind of moving on from that. We're losing Wayno. We
Mhm.
traded away Monty and we traded away Flaherty. We need three starting pitchers, and John Mozeliak hasn't been shy to say so.
Mhm.
Um, there's some options to buy here, and they're out on the market. Two of them we just saw on back-to-back nights.
Yeah,
Potential
I
future
thought so
Cardinals
too.
with Aaron Nola from the Phillies on I think it was Sunday, and then Blake Snell on Monday. Blake Snell
Mhm.
is the one who did outduel Wayno on that night,
Mhm.
sadly. But who do you want to see the Cardinals pursue?
Shohei
And
Ohtani. No, that come on. If you're in the market for starting pitching, okay, and I know that we can't get him because I know we wouldn't spend the money for him anyway, especially when we have to get two more pitchers after him. Like, come on, that guy's on the market. Like, you got to at least throw a bid out there.
here's my pro Otani pitch,
Okay.
and I've had this discussion with a friend at work,
And I know
but
he's hurt, probably not pitching next year. So there is that too, which
there
means,
is that.
well,
But this was prior to him getting hurt, and my initial thing was, you go out and you throw the money at Otani, right?
mhm,
You bring him in, that fills a pitcher. He's now your DH. That means that you can turn around and go trade for somebody like a Dylan Cease with the White Sox and be like, hey,
mhm.
you want a nice Nolan Gorman who's got 40 home run a year
Absolutely
power for
correct.
your
Yeah,
DH?
absolutely.
And immediately you have flexibility there. Now, will the Cardinals ever do it? Will they ever guarantee that much money to somebody? No, it'll never happen. But that's who everyone wants. Everyone knows who the guy is. I mean, you have somebody who can be a top 3 to 5 starter in the league
Right,
and top 3 to 5 hitter in the league every
right.
year in and year out. You're going to
Yeah,
take him.
absolutely. Well,
The next two options. What were you saying? Sorry.
before we move on, I did hear a quote earlier in the year about Shohei, where it was, I think it was on the Athletic, and they, were polling some GMs, and they asked someone like, "How much do you think he's going to get paid this year when his contract's up? 500 million?" And the GM said, "I think you are seriously undervaluing him. He's worth almost that much as like he's worth 300 million at least as a hitter, and he's worth 300 million at least as a pitcher. And then the fact that he's both, you have to pay a little tax on that."
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, as you were going to say, some of the other pitchers, Aaron Nola, Blake Snell, Lucas Giolito, Sonny Gray, and then Monty and
Yeah.
Jack as well, out of
Yeah.
contract at the end of the year.
Correct. And we saw Aaron Nola pitch. And so my I would love to I think we need to land Aaron Nola or Blake Snell. And they both have Aaron Nola especially. He's had a down year this year, but he pitched deep into October last year. It's to be expected a little bit. And both Aaron Nola and Blake Snell have a history of postseason success.
Mm-hmm.
If the Tampa Bay Rays had not pulled Snell, they potentially win the World Series that year.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Uh,
Oh,
and
that was so dumb. Yeah, that was a horrible mistake. That was the
so
biggest mistake they've made.
it was, and Blake Snell has that swing and miss stuff you want. Lucas
Mm-hmm.
Giolito is a solid potential, back into the rotation guy who's going to eat up some innings. He was just DFA, just released by the Angels, and we didn't even put in a claim. We need starters. We need people to eat innings right now.
Yeah,
I don't know
that
why we
was
didn't.
disappointing.
We could have been a tryout, see how he is, give him a tryout here, and potentially lock in a hometown discount. We
Yeah,
didn't even try.
yeah,
Sonny Gray,
that
I
was
think,
very
is
disappointing.
Sonny Gray was great about 6 years ago in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
he's been okay since then, but he doesn't move the needle for me in the way that I think he should. I'd rather roll Zach Thompson back out there than I would sign Sonny Gray.
Thompson's been
Monty and
okay.
Jack, Jordan Montgomery, I hope we can re-sign him. There's a lot of people who are mad that we didn't extend him in the offseason and we extended Michaelis, but you have to understand the guy's agent, Scott Boras.
Exactly.
He's not
Exactly.
going to sign an extension when he thinks Monty can get more money if he tests the open market next year. It was bound to
I
happen.
agree.
It's fine. And Jack Flaherty left the door open and made comments off and on preseason into the season about extending and staying with the Cardinals. Now that we've traded him, I don't know if that's still there. He made comments about wanting to play it like Wayno and play for one team his whole career. And he is a California native, but I don't, he gets a lot of hate for the things he says. And I think what he means gets taken out of context. I don't think he
Absolutely.
dislikes St. Louis. I don't think he dislikes Cardinals Nation. And honestly, he's a solid pitcher. I mean, like we could use even the Jack Flaherty this year, even if he's a number
hmm
3 starter for you. You need a number 3 starter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Jack takes a lot of flack for the fact that he's an advocate for the players and for changing um, the way the system is set up and enabling free agency earlier. Um, and people get upset about that. I'm like, why are you upset about millionaires taking more money from billionaires? That's literally not our problem. Like, okay. Um, some of the other guys, and we don't really need to dive into them, but Marcus Stroman, Lance Lynn, Alex Cobb, Michael Waka, a couple of familiar names there. Marcus Stroman was very close to signing with us a couple of years ago. They all have club or player options, so they're kind of more maybes. But there's
Lance Lynn
definitely
is not coming back to St.
no,
Louis.
no. Lance
That
Lynn is
guy
not.
is
No,
still mad that we didn't re-sign him, and we that was the wrong choice by us. We should have kept him.
we absolutely should.
Michael Waka is the one that I kind of wanted to highlight and get people thinking about. And the reason I want people to think about it is I thought Waka was done a couple of years ago. His last 2 seasons, he's had an ER either under or right at 3.
Hmm
Has pitched the whole season and has looked like the guy we thought he was going to be all those years ago. I mean, he's back to being a potential number 2 starter, maybe a number 3 starter. And we're losing Wayno. Why not bring back his doppelganger and at least fill some of that void for us? But I
Right.
think Waka he's a good fit. He knows the Cardinals organization. It's just whether or not he's soured on that Cardinals organization or not.
Walker never struck me as the kind of guy to be soured, but Lance Lynn is definitely not, and I don't blame him.
Lance
But
Lynn
yeah,
has been
those
very
are
open about his opinions of
yes,
the Cardinals organization. He does love this Cardinals fans, and he
yeah,
was he was always appreciative of us. And God love him. I loved Lance Lynn, and he was a huge
absolutely,
part of that 2011 World Series
absolutely,
coming out of the bullpen. So,
yeah,
Lance Lynn, just if you're ever listening to this, just know that we still love you, even if you don't love our organization. But we don't blame you either way.
yeah. So that brings us, I think, to our last topic then for the day, which is going to be our 10-second yes or no. But instead, I'm going to re-christen this today. And instead of being a 10-second yes or no, it's going to be the you pick three. And granted, I know we're not going to sign all three as free agents. I know that someone will probably be acquired via trade. Um, but of that list of guys we just said, and I'm going to exclude Shohei Ohtani because he's not pitching next year probably, and we're not going to spend the money for him anyway. So that's Aaron Nola, Blake Snell, Lucas Giolito, Sonny Gray, Monty, Jack, and then for kicks, I'll add in the other four, which we're just going to presume that things break our way. Marcus Stroman, Lance Lynn, Alex Cobb, Michael Wacha. That's 10 pitchers. Pick three of them that you think we should sign or attempt to sign as our top three targets next year.
So I'm going to give you 3 that I think would make the most sense
Mm-hmm.
for the organization and financially, as well as what we need.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get one of Blake Snell and Aaron Nola. I want Blake Snell.
I want Blake
Give
Snell
me
too.
Blake Snell.
Yeah.
Blake Snell needs to be your number 1. The next 2 are actually both former Cardinals, but you know what you're getting with them.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see Monty.
Absolutely.
I want to see Jordan Montgomery come back. The guy's a workhorse. He fits in well in the organization. Having a lefty starter that can eat innings the way that guy does is going to be invaluable. And the last one is Michael Wacha. I think financially, I think you're going to be able to get him at a better price than some of these other guys. And I think that he will be able to slot in as that number 2, number 3 starter, along with Monty kind of in that 2 to 3 range, with Blake Snell as your number 1. You've still got Miles Michaelis, who's got that upside, and then from there, I think that's what looks best. But those are the 3 that I think most realistically would fill the void that we need. But if I'm honest, I think we sign 2, and I think we trade for a third. And I think as we get further into the season, we'll have a better idea of what that's going to look like. But I see somebody like Dylan Cease from the White Sox, or potentially us trading for one of Seattle's young pitchers. But just, for anybody who's really excited about something like that, be aware it's no good trade or no big trade doesn't have some sort of a gut punch, and we're going to lose somebody we love.
Yeah. The only reason we haven't traded already with Seattle is because they told us very clearly in no uncertain terms that it would cost us 1 Jordan Walker or 1 Nolan Gorman, of which we are not willing or able to do.
We were not willing or able to do, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I still think, whatever. So my top 2 are going to be Blake Snell and Monty. But for funsies, I want to go ahead and say it would be really fun to get Jack and Lucas Giolito because they were high school teammates. And I think that would be really fun to reunite them at the major league level, especially if we could trade 1 Nolan Gorman to Atlanta and get Max Fried and then have all 3 of them because they were on the same high school team, which is just outrageous to think about facing them with a high school rotation.
Please tell me that they won the state title.
I think they lost in the state championship. And if I remember right, one of them, I think it was Jack, got hurt in the playoffs or at some point. One of them was hurt. Jack's 2 years behind them. They were seniors and he was a sophomore. But yeah, I think they were like undefeated in the regular season. It's like, if you look up the stat line, it's freakishly good.
Oh man. Well, with that, we'll see what happens. Off season's right around the corner, but definitely keep an eye on those young guys moving forward for this year. This has been a fun episode. It's been good to focus on the Cardinals and kind of split up the Cardinals and City the last couple nights here, and be able to focus, really nail down and not try to split the time, although City still ran pretty long yesterday. So for anybody who made it through episode 3, God bless you.
Yes.
With that in mind, if you guys enjoy any of this content, please like and follow, and subscribe to our channels. You can find us currently on YouTube and Spotify. We're working on getting on to Apple Podcasts as well. And you can keep an eye out if you're on Facebook, Instagram. We are out in the social media world, and please follow us, as we'll be trying to post things, and we're hopeful to have some giveaways in the near future for people who are liking and subscribing to us. So try to make it a little more fun and rewarding for those of you guys that are actually listening, or at least telling us you're listening. John, any final thoughts before we sign off?
The only thing I would add is that we are also on Twitter/X as well, which is basically me, no bleep podcast shit posting. So yes, please follow us there as well.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Have a great day or night, depending when you're listening to this. And until next time, we're the Lunatics.